Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Catholic Narc Recovery. We're jumping into another question today about narcissism. And our question today is, why does a narcissist do what they do? And joining us to help answer this question is Dr. Jameson Natwick. Jameson,
Thank you,
hello.
Veronica. It's wonderful to be back here with you and with you all listening. Um, Gosh, this is such a great question. Why does a narcissist do what they do? Because what we have to acknowledge is that there's a lot of theories out there, but we don't quite fully understand the complete pathology of why this personality disorder manifests. But some of the prominent theories that you will see is that underneath all of this grandiosity and need for admiration is a very fragile person with a very low self worth. And depending on the different theory or different perspective of how you would see the human psyche, a lot what we do really believe is that, like with a personality disorder, this is something that was developed through time, that they had a family environment or there was an environment that they were in that promoted these characteristics. And it's hard to determine like what this could be. This could be someone who was born into a very affluent family and they got everything they wanted. They were loved
Mhm.
by their parents. They were never told that they were wrong. So basically, they built their personality developed in a way that it was like, well, the world does revolve around me because it's been revolving around me since I was a child and no one's challenged and they've just kind of moved in that direction. Another one could be maybe they were completely neglected, horrible, like their parents weren't around, they were always blamed for things, they were told that they were worthless, all of that. And this was a kind of a whiplash like way of like counteracting that trauma that they experienced was, well, I'm gonna fight for myself, and now I'm so great. Look what I went through in my childhood, and look at what I've become, as a way of managing the abuse and trauma that they had early on in life. So those are theories and stuff, and I think that's sometimes hard for individuals. They're like, why would someone even? How did they get to this place? So we do know that it developed. It usually manifests. Most personality disorders you see come out in later adolescence, early adulthood. Is like where you will start to see. Like never in my clinical training have I ever seen someone try and give a 13-year-old like a narcissist diagnosis, because most adolescents by developmental standards are kind of narcissistic. Life is about
Yeah.
them. But so that's kind of like from a diagnosis standpoint, as we're looking at in adulthood. This is something that emerges and becomes full fledged at that point. And it goes back to these psychological traits. For what, like to protect that low self esteem or whatever is inside, they will have a lack of empathy because the idea of even connecting with other people or seeing another person's perspective will threaten them.
Hmm.
What if that person wants to tell them that they did something wrong and like they can't tolerate that? So it becomes something that they just shut off from.
I've
Or
heard for them it's like dying. Like they literally feel like they're dying if their ego is threatened. I don't know if that's what you're familiar
yeah,
with.
like and like it's one of those like it's just it's like I like why would I ever do that? It would
Yeah.
be so threatening from like an existential perspective. This is like their part of their identity is to be I'm admired and better than everyone. So if like it's so linked into their identity that they will cling to it. And like I had a supervisor talk worked for 15 years with a narcissist, and it was about 7 years in that this person could finally start to contemplate that his wife had a different experience.
Wow.
Like so it's slow, it is very slow moving at times, and every healing, every treatment journey is different. But it is like it took a long time for that to start being a possibility.
Yeah.
And lastly, like is that manipulation. So you have this like lack of empathy with like the grandiosity, but then the manipulation is they are masters at manipulating relationships to protect their personality disorder, that pathology.
Hmm.
And I think people have these questions of like, are they conscious of it, or are they doing that? And it's a good question, but I think it misses. It's This is their personality. It's like, why do you have a certain sense of humor, or why do you have certain hobbies or interests that you're into? Like, why do you do the things that you do? Well, they do the things that they do because there's this pathology that is driving the bus, and it's just like, this is my nature. And it takes a lot of work for them to realize like what I'm doing is not okay, and I want to change. But it's really
Yeah.
that they'll do everything in their power to
To
protect
protect
people.
themselves. I have a follow up question to that. So, do you think that narcissistic personality disorder is more nature or nurture or a combination of the two?
Well, if we had a whole panel, like if we had our neurologists in here, or developmentalists. So there are people who study that there are probably genetic components to this. Like, some people are just genetically predisposed. Like, they're maybe like a little bit more arrogant, or just how they are, how they were created. But one way or another, I really believe like nature is going, or nurture is going to have a grand influence on this.
Hmm.
Because if they had a maybe they had someone who could help like see this and like help parent or guide it in the right direction. Because I was reading an article recently where they talked about like a lot of our CEOs and prominent athletes and really successful people, they actually have a healthy dose of narcissism that is
Mm.
necessary for them to be successful. Like, they
Very
kind of
interesting.
need like they kind of need to be able to be like, you know what, I'm making these decisions, I know it's going to hurt feelings, but I need to move forward this way. Or I am like, I think about like athletes, like they're
Yeah.
kind of arrogant, like I am the best in the world, and in a way they're right. Now the problem is that you get these people who, it's really like, it's just more about protecting themselves, and they've been in an environment that has nurtured that they and it has gone unchecked, and it's
Yeah.
just continued to build and build and build.
So I guess it can be a combination of both, but definitely nurture plays a big role in it. So as we wrap up with why does a narcissist do what they do, talk to us about like why they hurt others. I know they're motivated by their ego, of course, but what else is going on there?
I often wonder, and this is just kind of my own thoughts, they might not even deem it as hurting others, from their perspective, which is actually like, and if we think about that statement, is why narcissistic abuse survivors, it's even more painful, because the narcissist probably won't ever acknowledge like, I hurt you, I'm sorry, because they won't interpret it that way. Like, they're going to look at it as, you failed me, you messed up, or all of that. So they're responding appropriately in their perspective. And
Very good
it's
point.
like, so they're like, like they think they're doing what is just, what is good,
Mm.
but their perception of reality and relationships is so distorted due to their pathology. It is such a self-serving pathology to making sure that they're being protected. So they'll hurt others, but they won't recognize it because they don't have that empathy.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, is they like want the narcissist to know like, you hurt me, or admit it. And unless they are gonna do the work and really do that, like, a lot of times that this pathology won't allow them to approach that because they can't see it that
You
way.
just can't see it. Yeah,
Um,
it's so fascinating.
but it's all rooted, like, if we go back to what we talked about, this great insecurity about their self-worth and who they are, maybe their abilities, all of that. They're ready to hurt people because they don't want to be vulnerable. They will like, like, in a way, their own emotions are probably overwhelming to them, so they will just have to manipulate and control everything around them. So, like, I mean, given I'll just pause there because I feel a tangent coming on. But it's really to protect themselves, and like, and it's hard sometimes to have compassion for them, and other times it's really easy to. And I think especially when a part of us may care or love for a narcissist, or be want like recognize like I have some kind of relationship with this person, like it can be hard to be like, how do I balance, like I want to have compassion and love for them, but I also need this acknowledgement of how I've been wounded and hurt by them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it goes to a good point. Like, you know, why they do what we do, maybe we won't be able to understand that, but that doesn't prevent us from setting boundaries, which is a loving thing to do. And I think that's where our faith is really important, because it teaches us that, you know, we hate the sin, don't hate the sinner. And sometimes it can be very difficult to be in the fire, in the range of fire for someone who's acting like this towards us. But ultimately, they're operating from a very wounded place, like you said.
And boundaries are, I actually think that is, I think, the gateway for helping narcissists realize they're hurting
Yes.
people, because that's the language that they will understand, is when someone is setting a boundary with them, because they have to feel it and integrate it into their life. So I'm sure we'll go into this in
We're
another
going to go into that.
podcast, but
Definitely. That's a whole nother episode, which we can dive into, and how narcissists don't like to respect boundaries because they're used to bulldozing people. But I think we should end it at that. So, why does a narcissist do what they do? There's a multitude of reasons, but they're very insecure, and ultimately they're just trying to protect their ego. And they might not even realize that what they're doing is not in alignment with how they should be acting. So I guess to wrap up, I'll leave us off with a scripture verse from Matthew, chapter 7, verse 15 to 16. So watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves. By their fruit, you will recognize them. So thanks so much, guys, for tuning in, and we'll join you at the next episode.